fellow Americans.
I can no longer remain in today's Democratic Party that's under the complete control of an elitist cabal of warmongers who are driven by cowardly wokeness, who divide us by racializing every issue and stoking anti-white racism, who actively work to undermine our God-given freedoms that are enshrined in our Constitution, who are hostile to people of faith and spirituality, who demonize the police but protect criminals at the expense of law-abiding Americans, who believe in open borders, who weaponize the national security state to go after their political opponents, and above all, who are dragging us ever closer to nuclear war. Now, I believe in a government that's of the people, by the people, and for the people. Unfortunately, today's Democratic Party does not. Instead, it stands for a government that is of, by, and for the powerful elite. Now, I'm calling on my fellow common sense, independent-minded Democrats to join me in leaving the Democratic Party. If you can no longer stomach the direction that the so-called woke Democratic Party ideologues are taking our country, then I invite you to join me.
The Vietnam War and the push for US involvement was a result of the Gulf of Tonkin incident. A lie. The Iraq War famously is a result of lies. Wars in Somalia are a result of lies. The Second World War and the German invasion of Poland was a result of carefully constructed lies. That is war by media. Let us ask ourselves, of the complicit media, which is the majority of the mainstream press, what is the average death count attributed to each journalist?
Let me ask you a question. Do you think you should be the one to be able to decide when to pull the trigger?
No, sir.
Isn't that what this is about? If you adopt the position that any time you are denied, you're particular, and there's 4 groups out there, and inspectors, you're the group you headed, anytime you are denied, that ipso facto requires the United States and the Security Council to act on what they said they would do, which is to use whatever means necessary to take on Saddam Hussein so you can get into that particular facility. Is that not correct? Is that not your position?
Mr. Senator, I have a job to do, or I had a job to do, and that was to disarm Iraq in accordance with the provisions of relevant resolutions.
With all due respect, I'm not trying to be confrontational. I'm trying to get this as clear as I can. I really mean this now. You have an absolute logic. You put together a very tight syllogism here. You have indicated that your job is to disarm. The only way you can disarm is to have access. The only way you can have access is either with permission on the part of Iraq, or if denied, forced access, right?
Compelled access.
Compelled. Well, okay, compelled. You sound like the lawyer and I sound like the military guy. I mean, compelled, where I come from, when my old man said you're compelled, it meant I was forced. I mean, it was a real simple proposition. It wasn't much to debate. Now, there is a clear logic to that. And that's what I mean when I say I respect your position. But that means that whenever you choose a target that warrants inspection and you are denied, that ipso facto, at that moment, the only way your position can be satisfied or sustained is if the UN Security Council or the United States, acting unilaterally, uses force to guarantee access. Is not that true?
Yes, sir.
Now, that means that you get to choose the time and place when we would use force, if we use force.
No, sir.
Of course you do. If you choose the site and it's denied.
And we coordinate with the member states to include the United States.
Exactly.
And prior to us going in, we have their agreement that this indeed is an inspection worth doing.
Okay, inspection worth doing, everybody's agreed it's worth doing, and it gets stopped.
Yes, sir.
At that moment, we're an automatic pilot as far as you're concerned. Period. No ifs, ands, or buts. Now, I respect that. But now, it seems to me the Secretary of State might have a slightly different problem. Secretary of State might be sitting there and saying, now look over there on that side. Now, I remember so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so, and the 12 people on this side, they're all the ones that said they didn't want to use force. Now, I'm going to have to go tell the President now that we should, or Secretary Cohen, unleash whatever it takes to get it done. And our military assessment is the same as the Major's. The Major's assessment is, privately held but publicly acknowledged later, that airstrikes alone aren't going to do this. Saddam's not going to cave on this. So, now here's the deal. I recommended the President have at it and let the chips fall where they may. A reasonable position for the Secretary of Defense, the Secretary of State to take. But I respectfully suggest, Major, they have a responsibility slightly above your pay grade. Slightly above your pay grade. To decide whether or not to take the nation to war alone. Or to take the nation to war partway. Or to take the nation to war halfway. That's a real tough decision. That's why they get paid the big bucks. That's why they get the limos and you don't. I mean this sincerely. I'm not trying to be flip. Because I think, and that's why I said at the outset, the reason why I'm glad you did what you did, we should come to our milk. We should make a decision. But in terms of whether the Secretary of State has no more to consider than you do as the arms inspector. You didn't get in, didn't get my job done, get me in. Period. You made the deal, right? That's the deal. A deal's a deal. Get me in. Scott Ritter, I'm ready to go. It's not how it works. Now, maybe it should work that way. But wouldn't you acknowledge that if you were President of the United States or the Secretary of State, you'd sit there and say, now, okay, old Scotty boy didn't get in. We said he should get in. We want him to get in. It's important that he does get in. They're not going to let him in, so what are we going to do now? We know that France and Russia aren't going to be with us. We're quite confident China's not. We've already run those traps. They're not there. We're not sure where the United States Senate is, but have at it, boys. Go get them. And by the way, Scott and the boys say air power's not enough. I think it's a legitimate debate, Scott, Major. I think it's a legitimate debate. But I don't think we should be putting it in the context of, you have somebody up there at state saying, look, how can we weasel out of this agreement? We want to let this guy out there hanging. We're not this. It's a very practical political decision. Same kind of decision General Powell made. Same kind of decision President Bush made. Every president, every Secretary of State has to do it. Like I said, they get paid more than you. Their job's a hell of a lot more complicated than yours. They may have made the wrong decision, and you brought it to light. We should address it. We should say straight up where we are, and we should do it. And for that, I thank you. But it's above your pay grade.
Rationality belongs to the cool observers, but because of the stupidity of the average man, he follows not reason but faith, and the naive faith of the proletarian requires necessary illusion and emotionally potent oversimplifications, which have to be provided by myth makers to keep the ordinary person on the right course.
That I'm allowed to ask you this question is because today the federal court ruled that the government doesn't have the right to determine who is or is not a journalist. This is the second election in a row that the court had to overturn your government. Do you still insist on being able to make that decision, and why?
First of all, questions around accreditation were handled by the press gallery and the consortium of networks who have strong perspectives on quality journalism and the important information that is shared with Canadians. The reality is organizations like yours that continue to spread misinformation and disinformation on the science around vaccines, around how we're going to actually get through this pandemic and be there for each other and keep our kids safe, is part of why we're seeing such unfortunate anger and lack of understanding of basic science. And quite frankly, I won't call it a media organization, your group of individuals need to take accountability for some of the polarization that we're seeing in this country. And I think Canadians are cluing into the fact that there is a really important decision we take about the kind of country we want to see. And I salute all extraordinary, hardworking journalists that put science and facts at the heart of what they do and ask me tough questions every day, but make sure that they are educating and informing Canadians from a broad range of perspectives, which is the last thing that you guys do.
Killed a million people in Iraq.
That is a separate...
You killed a million people in Iraq. It's incredible that you have the brass neck to be sitting here now urging another Iraq war.
George,
after
if
what
I was
you've already
still in
done.
Parliament...
There can be no doubt that Saddam Hussein has biological weapons and the capability to rapidly produce more, many more. And he has the ability to dispense these lethal poisons and diseases in ways that can cause massive death and destruction. If biological weapons seem too terrible to contemplate, chemical weapons are equally chilling. UNMOVIC already laid out much of this, and it is documented for all of us to read in UNSCOM's 1999 report on the subject. If we consider just one category of missing weaponry, 6,500 bombs from the Iran-Iraq war, UNMOVIC says the amount of chemical agent in them would be on the order of 1,000 tons. These quantities of chemical weapons are now unaccounted for. Dr. Blick says, quipped that, quote, mustard gas is not marmalade. You are supposed to know what you did with it. We believe Saddam Hussein knows what he did with it, and he has not come clean with the international community. We have evidence these weapons existed. What we don't have is evidence from Iraq that they have been destroyed or where they are. That is what we are still waiting for.
Dr. Fauci, knowing that it is a crime to lie to Congress, do you wish to retract your statement of May 11th where you claimed that the NIH never funded gain-of-function research in Wuhan?
Senator Paul, I have never lied before the Congress, and I do not retract that statement. This paper that you are referring to was judged by qualified staff up and down the chain as not being gain of function. Let me finish.
You take an animal virus and you increase its transmissibility to humans, right. You're saying that's not gain of function?
Yeah, that is correct. And Senator Paul, you do not know what you are talking about, quite frankly. And I want to say that officially. You do not know what you are talking about. You get NIH, one person.
Let's read from the NIH definition of gain of function. This is your definition that you guys wrote. It says that scientific research that increases the transmissibility among animals is gain of function. They took animal viruses that only occur in animals and they increased their transmissibility to humans. How you can say that is not gain of function?
It is not.
It's a dance, and you're dancing around this because you're trying to obscure responsibility for 4 million people dying around the world from a pandemic.
And let's send Dr. Fauci.
I have to, well, now you're getting into something. If the point that you are making is that the grant that was funded as a sub-award from EcoHealth to Wuhan created SARS-CoV-2. That's where you are getting. Let me finish.
We don't know.
Well, wait a minute.
It did come from the lab, but all the evidence is pointing that it came from the lab, and there will be responsibility for those who funded the lab, including yourself.
I totally
This committee will allow the witness to respond.
I totally resent the lie that you are now propagating, Senator, because if you look at the viruses that were used in the experiments, that were given in the annual reports, that were published in the literature, it is molecularly impossible.
No one's saying those viruses caused it.
It
no
is
one is
molecularly.
Those viruses caused the pandemic. What we're alleging is that gain-of-function research was going on in that lab, and NIH funded it.
That is
not. You can't get away from it. It meets your definition, and you are obfuscating the truth.
I'm not obfuscating the truth. You are the one.
Time is expired, but I will allow the witness to.
Let me just finish. I want everyone to understand that if you look at those viruses, and that's judged by qualified virologists and evolutionary biologists, those viruses are molecularly impossible to result in SARS-CoV-2.
Those viruses caused the pandemic. We're saying they are gain-of-function viruses because they were animal viruses that became more transmissible and human, and you funded it. And you admit the truth. And you implying...
Paul, your time has expired, and I will allow witnesses who come before this committee to respond.
And you are implying that what we did was responsible for the deaths of individuals. I totally resent that. And if anybody is lying here, Senator, it is you.
Whatever our hopes may be for the future, for reducing this threat or living with it, there is no escaping either the gravity or the totality of its challenge to our survival and to our security. A challenge that confronts us in unaccustomed ways in every sphere of human activity. This deadly challenge imposes upon our society two requirements of direct concern, both to the press and to the President. Two requirements that may seem almost contradictory in tone, but which must be reconciled and fulfilled if we are to meet this national peril. I refer first to the need for far greater public information, and second, to the need for far greater official secrecy. The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society, and we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. We decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwarranted concealment of pertinent facts far outweighed the dangers which are cited to justify it. Even today, there is little value in opposing the threat of a closed society by imitating its arbitrary restrictions. Even today, there is little value in ensuring the survival of our nation if our traditions do not survive with it. And there is very grave danger that an announced need for increased security will be seized upon by those anxious to expand its meaning to the very limits of official censorship and concealment. That I do not intend to permit to the extent that it's in my control. And no official of my administration, whether his rank is high or low, civilian or military, should interpret my words here tonight as an excuse to censor the news, to stifle dissent, to cover up our mistakes, or to withhold from the press and the public the facts they deserve to know.
Hey, everybody. Welcome into Redacted on this Wednesday. I'm Clayton Morris.
I'm Natali Morris.
And on this show, we try to cut through the propaganda and cover the stories the mainstream media largely ignores. We're going to start with the digital dollar tonight and why, in just a few days, the Federal Reserve is moving towards a digital dollar. So you might not have heard much about this, but the Federal Reserve rolls out the new digital dollar plan on the 1st of April, and then it will basically wrap up by July. This is the start of it all. This is perhaps the beginning of the end of the U.S. dollar. We're going to look at all of the different details and how this could affect you personally coming up on the show.
Plus, we're going to talk about a new bill that would have the U.S. withdraw from Somalia after a failed attempt to withdraw from Syria. We're going to put those military-industrial complex buddies stories together.
We're also going to look at this unbelievable story from James O'Keefe, formerly of Project Veritas, after, of course, his big bombshell Pfizer story, out with a bombshell news story. And we went down a deep rabbit hole with the Federal Election Commission today, looking at some of this data and how corrupt these Democrats may have been in trying to raise money through money laundering schemes. We're going to look at all of that and more as Redacted starts right now. Hello, everyone. I see. Let us know where you're joining us from tonight in the chat. I just saw someone said hello from Ireland. Let us know. Let us know where you're joining us from. And good to see all of you from around the world. I always like to try to find out where our furthest, most remote location is. Like anyone watching us from...
well, everyone's remote from each other. The world's a big
true.
place.
Antarctica would be nice.
I mean, my mom's basement. Are we talking distance or depth?
Yeah, you're in your mom's basement. Now it's pretty far from where we are. So Antarctica, Antarctica, the North Pole, Iceland would be nice. Anywhere you are, let us know where you're joining us from today around the world. I love seeing our large international audience here. So great to see all of you. I should mention we have a great community, and we have a community that you can support us if you'd like to for the price of a cup of coffee once a month. You can join our VIP community. We have about 49,000 members over there now, and we're going to be doing some exclusive live streams, new additional content. Natalie's going to be starting her book club over there, and this will be just for members. We're going to be doing live streams just for community members in there where we'll get together, we'll hang out, we'll just kind of chit chat. So that'll just be for our community members, our Redacted Rebel VIP community. And that's our way of saying thank you for supporting independent journalism. Again, this show is totally free, but if you would love to support what we do here, that keeps the lights on, helps provide for our whole team to be able to bring you this show every night. So again, redacted.inc is the website, redacted.inc, and then click on the community button, and then you can become a Redacted Rebel VIP for the price of a cup of coffee once a month. So South Africa, Oklahoma, Belgium.
A lot of Europeans, a lot
Louisville,
of Floridians.
Kentucky.
Yeah, I see that.
Poland, Netherlands.
Also, someone said that they're joining from their birthday. So imagine joining us on your birthday. I appreciate you spending time with us today.
That's right.
I saw Saturn, but I'm not quite sure I believe it.
Saturn? Is that Saturn, like Saturn, Oklahoma or something?
Maybe.
It just said Saturn, so I'm assuming space, but...
Okay.
I'm assuming their car.
Oh, it could be that.
Yeah. So, well, you never know these days with what's going on in this crazy, crazy times. Well, we are in some crazy times. Let's get to this story now. Next week, everything changes for the U.S. dollar next week. The Federal Reserve is about to completely alter how you use money in the United States. Why is no one covering this story? They're focused on Donald Trump, literally ignoring one of the biggest stories in America right now. We're going to get to that part of the story in a moment, how the monetary policy will shift, the monetary system will shift in the United States. But first, something odd is happening in the United States and to the U.S. dollar that's in your pocket right now. It's quickly becoming worthless. And not just in terms of inflation and buying power, but try to pay for something with United States paper currency in your pocket, and you will now be met with resistance. You'll be told, hey, we don't accept paper cash anymore. We don't accept your coins. That's exactly what's happening. Take the U.S. national parks.
I mean, I accept that from flight attendants because I'm like, you don't have change all the way up here.
Yeah, now, I accept that, but no. But anywhere else, like on the space shuttle, maybe. International Space Station, I get it.
Right.
Like, I don't think that you have a cash register to give me some change, right? But U.S. national parks, yes, places that you drive your RV to and hitch up overnight, you'll now find that these U.S. government parks will no longer accept cash. This is just the first of many government offices, government buildings, government installations that you'll now not be able to pay cash. The cost of going cashless, this article says, and Frommer's, as U.S. national parks, as many switch to plastic only, digital. Here's how Frommer's describes it. So far in 2023, Badlands National Park in South Dakota, Crater National Park in Oregon, Sleeping Bear Dunes National Lakeshore, Michigan, have all transitioned to fee systems that only allow credit card, debit card, and mobile payments. And Washington State's Mount Rainier National Park set to follow suit in May of this year. Those places join at least 20 more U.S. federal lands that won't take your U.S. federal currency anymore, including Wyoming's Devil Tower National Monument, FDR's former home in upstate New York, the Wright Brothers National Museum in North Carolina, the Chaco Culture Pueblos in New Mexico. From sea to shining sea, you better have a credit card, prepaid pass, or a smartphone that's equipped with a mobile payment app if you want to access these all-important sites of natural beauty in the United States, historical interest, or any sort of outdoor recreation and family road trip fun. I remember pulling up with my family and, if the attendant wasn't there, you drop some money in the bin or you put a little envelope and you drop some cash in the system, gone. You can't do that anymore. And a lot of Americans, I just want to say a lot of Americans are unbanked, don't have a bank account, don't have access to digital currency. So you don't take their cash, they can't enjoy any of this. Go ahead, David.
Well, and I think that's by design. And what this really makes me feel like is this is the further push to the federal digital currency, because like a lot of us use Cash App and Venmo and stuff like that. But what can happen is once they get us into a cashless society and even using the apps that we right now trust, then they can throw regulations on those apps. And we're already in there because they want to be able to move money instantly with this Federal Reserve thing that they're working on. So it is further moving us toward that digital currency thing that we've been talking about for a while. And that's scary.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And as someone in the chat just says, what happens if the whole system collapses, breaks down, falls down? Yeah, well, here, don't worry about it because the internet never goes down. Websites never have a problem. Banking systems are always secure, so you don't have that to worry about. Don't even worry about it.
Nothing is hackable. Nothing is hackable.
Exactly. Nothing is hackable. So the National Park Service describes going cashless as a way of improving efficiency, saving money, tightening security. Opponents, of course, countering that an ongoing war on cash in various kinds of transactions will hurt privacy, right? Limit access, puts us all at the mercy of technical glitches. Hacking is what we just talked about, or just collapses of the grid. What if power outages, right?
Well, more concerning than that is the idea of just dipping into your money when they decide to. For instance, Senator Elizabeth Warren has been very vocal about wanting to have an H&R block that's federal. So basically, you sign in, the government calculates how much tax you owe, and then just takes it from you right then and there. So there's no room to be creative. There's no tax incentives to say donate to what have you. There's no more arguing. It's just you owe this. We take it now. That's one of the reasons that we never link bank accounts to our IRS tax payments, because we'd rather wait for those direct deposits if we have a refund than have them have access to just swoop in and take whatever they want. We had a dispute last year because there was a check that didn't make it on time, even though we mailed it on time. So they were marking it late. Of course, I've never been able to get anybody on the phone, but we had a $600 late fee that I was not able to dispute. We were sending letters. It was going back and forth. But I knew for a fact that this dispute in like future society, they would have just taken it instead of me being able to argue the $600.
And that's a good reminder for all of us. Please, please, please do not have your bank account linked to the IRS.
Now, this is not our advice. This is from tax expert Tom Wheelwright, who we talk about a lot on this show, from the Wealthability podcast, fantastic podcast to, further your financial education. But he does not ever want anyone to link that. If you're like, well, I want that direct deposit, you're better to hold your horses a few weeks for the actual check than to give them that power over you. We're not giving you advice. We're giving you thought. Things to think about.
So the U.S.
Well, and I also wanted to point out really quick the infrastructure for internet and mobile. How many national parks do you have great mobile service to even be able to use these apps? Because you're getting on your bank, you got to be online, or it's not going to get the charge.
That's a great point. How many times are you out there in the middle of nowhere and you're like, we went hiking one time and I don't know, we were somewhere in Pennsylvania and I was trying to get information to my family or something like that. And there was nothing, no service at all. And we had to wait till we got back on the main road, like 30 minutes away before we ever got any service from anything. So exactly right. So the U.S. is moving to a cashless society, a digital dollar to track everything you do. Side note, the country of Sri Lanka is now accepting U.S. dollars in cash to go to their national parks. Let me repeat that. The country of Sri Lanka is letting you use U.S. dollars to go to their national parks. You just can't do that in the United States. You literally can't make this up. Here's Sri Lanka is allowing foreign visitors to pay in U.S. dollars to enter their national parks. On Monday, the Federal Reserve, led by Jerome Powell, issued a press release declaring the launch of the new U.S. digital dollar, which is coming in July fully, but it rolls out next week, so about 3 days. So get ready, it's happening. Here's what they're planning and how they describe it from the Federal Reserve. The Fed Now service will provide individuals and businesses the ability to send and receive instant payments through the Federal Reserve FedLine network at any time of day, 7 days a week. Recipients of payments using FedLine or FedNow will have immediate full access to funds which enable greater flexibility, they say, and opportunity for immediate use of money sent and received. In April, the Federal Reserve will begin certifying participants so that they can be fully set up when the launch occurs. So again, starting next week. Those institutions will be prepared to send live transactions through the system. And then in June, the Federal Reserve and those certified participants, again, which start next week, will engage in production validation activities to prepare for the launch. But next week, it officially starts, this rollout, the first week of April.
Now, we have somebody in the chat who just said we're being fearmongers. I would like to point out that at least 11 countries in recent history have gone bankrupt and dipped into citizens' private retirement accounts in order to bail themselves out. Ireland, Hungary, Argentina, the list goes on.
Cyprus.
I can name at least 11 of them.
Greece.
So if you want to call us a fearmonger, that's fine. But then I hope you're not too surprised because we have over, I think it's getting close to $33 trillion in debt at this moment. Is it 35, 33?
30, yeah, it was like 33 last week. It's probably 34.
And so, and there are talks, for instance, politicians have been discussing forcing private retirement accounts into buying government bonds or treasuries. So not only would they be able to dip into your account, they would force what you use it for. Politicians actually have been talking about it. It's not my idea. I am afraid of it, but I'm not fear-mongering by making it up.
Yeah,
so take that back.
But also, take it back. But also, by educating you, I don't know how that's fear-inducing. Like, what we're telling you is what's not being reported at all in the mainstream media. They're ignoring this story. And then you saw what happened with Silicon Valley Bank 2 weeks ago, right? Where people woke up and they suddenly lost all their money.
Oh, choose not to be afraid of that. That's okay.
So you can protect yourselves. You can protect your family by doing smart things. And that's all we're trying to do is educate you to make sure that you're protected and, to protect you and your family. So that when...
Well, the thing is, like...
Let me ask you guys, do you guys trust the politicians? Do you guys trust Washington?
Right.
If you do, then good. Then don't... Then put all of your money...
Then why are you here?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then you can
and the way that they're going to get mass adoption is by this convenience. I mean, we always hear when we get our money back, it takes 3 to 5, like they can take our money instantly, but it takes 3 to 7 business days for us to get it back. And that hurts a lot of people when you make some kind of purchase and you're waiting for that refund. So people are going to, they're going to use that for mass adoption. And then this is going to be tied to, like, if you owe a ticket to the city or something, they're going to be able to take it. They're going to be able to take your tax returns. Like, if you feel like you don't owe the right amount, there's no arguing. They're like, nope, this is what you owe. We're going to take it. Like, they're going to be directly connected to your finances. And this is like that whole social credit score kind of thing that if you commit a crime or do anything, you can be completely locked out of your money. So I think this is something to be fearful of.
Yeah, and if you notice the journalists that we've had on this show, okay, I'm talking about like Wyatt Reed, for instance, great journalist, right? He was sitting in this studio after covering what was unfolding in Ukraine, telling the truth about what was happening in Ukraine. And he was sitting here with Max Blumenthal. We went out to lunch, and he was going to pay Max back for a flight that afternoon because they were flying into Italy later that afternoon after our meeting and our interview. And he said, "Oh my God, my account's been frozen." Like his Venmo account was just frozen by the company. PayPal freezing accounts. We saw, this is what people do.
Brandon Straka, he can't bank. He lost Venmo. He lost PayPal. He lost almost every account he had for the J6 thing.
Yeah. So these companies can do that. And then on top of that, the control that the Federal Reserve will have with the US dollar. So all it is, all we're trying to do is educate you. And so you are aware of what's coming when all of your friends are continuing to do the same old thing, and you are at least prepared with your money in a safe place and are protected in that way. But next week it starts.
Well, also, if I can pop in real quick, but if you look at in the recent history, if you look at who got bailed out first during the pandemics, it was not the people, it was business, it was Wall Street. Yeah. So when like this debt comes to when we have to pay this bill for our trillions of dollars of debt, who do you think they're going to take it from first? They're not going to take it from the top. They're going to take it from the bottom up. Yeah. And so it's like that's having
really
your own
point.
assets.
Well, it's called the bail-in process, guys. I did a whole segment on the bail-in process about 2 months ago here on the show, bail-in versus bailouts. And I featured Cyprus at length, and I went through what happened in Cyprus. It's not fantasy. They did it to 11 countries. This is what Natalie just said, but I specifically focused on Cyprus and how the government announced, we're going to use your money to fix the problem. We're going to bail in, not bail out. We're going to take the money that's already been deposited and use that to cover the debts. So it's happened. Catherine Austin Fitts, who's a brilliant, brilliant woman, recently described what going cashless would do to all of us. Watch.
So, Tucker, the one of the bedrocks of freedom is freedom to do financial transactions, including privately, or freedom to do where you want to do and wherever you want to do. And unfortunately, as the financial system has become more and more digital, you see more and more not only invasive surveillance, but more and more controls. You referred to Canada, perfect example. And the reality, as the financial system gets more controlling and more invasive, it's a little bit like bringing up a corral around us. And CBDCs, central bank digital currencies, and vaccine passports or digital IDs are sort of the last shutting of the gate. It's hard for many people to imagine the risks here because we're so used to living with financial transaction freedom, and we don't understand that when this gate closes on us, we literally will be sitting in a system where the central banks believe that our assets belong to them, and they can dictate where we can spend money and what we can spend money on. The important thing to understand is central bank digital currencies are not currencies. It gives the ability for the central bankers, and they've said this publicly, the ability to not only set the rules centrally, but enforce the rules centrally. If you don't behave, you can have your money turned off.
Oh, yeah. Have your money turned off, which we're going to get to in a second. So how invasive would this actually be? Well, perhaps as invasive as what China is doing with it. Remember, Klaus Schwab at the World Economic Forum loves China and thinks that the way that they control their people is top-notch.
So we have to define how the world should look like, which we want to come out of this transformation period. I respect China's achievements, which are tremendous over the last over 40 years. I think it's a role model for many countries, but I think also we should leave it to each country to make its own decision what system it wants to adopt. And I think we should be very careful in imposing systems. But the Chinese model is certainly a very attractive model for quite a number of countries.
Of course, then he's praised Justin Trudeau as perhaps the greatest student of the World Economic Forum. And we see, of course, civil liberties and banking system structures they put in Canada. We already know that China loves to keep an eye on its people. That's not news. Well, here's another example of how a cashless digital currency would work. It expires. It would expire. Yes, just like that gift card that you got for Chili's 2 Christmases ago that you never used. It disappears. You can't use it under any circumstances any longer, given a time
So they don't
period.
want you to have a savings.
Well, I mean, it just depends on how. Yeah, well, they don't want you to have a savings account. They actually do not want you to have savings. They want you to spend it. So that's what this article purports. Let me go through this sort of expiring money and here's how they're using it in China right now. In October of 2020, the Shenzhen district announced the distribution of 10 million digital yuan to Chinese citizens, to about 50,000 people. It's about $30 US. Lucky winners could then spend their money at designated shops between the October 12th and the 18th. They only had those 6 days to spend it. A similar announcement happened in Shenzhen when registered Chinese citizens would receive their money on January 11th and then would need to spend it before January 17th. A 6-day sort of stimulus, if you will. Before it expires, it disappears. And if you think that's just going to happen in China, nope, it's coming to the United States. You can read all about the programmable expiring money right on the Federal Reserve's website. They printed it. It's on the Federal Reserve's website. Read it right here. The Fed describes it this way: expiring money, one whose value falls to zero after a specific date, is a potential monetary policy tool. Programmability, a technical feature made possible by digitization, can accelerate decisions to spend it, making it very effective means for stimulating consumption. So they can accelerate decisions to spend it. Oh, you only have 5 days? That'll accelerate your decision to go out and spend money.
Well, this
You know what it reminds me of?
Yeah. What?
I was gonna say, you ever see The Office where Jim is training Dwight with the ding every time and he gives him a piece of candy? It's like every time you get money in your account, they're training you to want to spend it, and it's like then even
It's
when you get your own money, you're gonna be like, yeah, exactly,
Yeah, it is Pavlovian.
Yes, it is. And it also counters the narrative that any kind of federal spending floods the economy with too much money and then causes inflation, because that money wouldn't stay in circulation. It would expire, but then is it really yours? If it's just, then it's a stipend of sugar, of beef, of whatever it is that you can buy in that moment, right? It's not really your money.
And if that's not bad enough, China and Russia and the rest of the BRICS nations are about to completely undermine the U.S. dollar by settling oil purchases in Chinese currency rather than U.S. dollars. Here's how Fareed Zakaria described it in a segment that he just did, where he thinks it's one of the greatest threats to the U.S. dollar. Watch.
Here's my take. The most interesting outcome of the 3-day summit between Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping got limited media attention. Describing their talks, Putin said, "We are in favor of using the Chinese yuan for settlements between Russia and the countries of Asia, Africa, and Latin America." So, the world's second largest economy and its largest energy exporter are together actively trying to dent the dollar's dominance as the anchor of the international financial system. Will they succeed? The dollar is America's last surviving superpower. It gives Washington unrivaled economic and political muscle. It can slap sanctions on countries unilaterally, which frees that country out of large parts of the world economy. And Washington can spend freely, certain that its debt will be bought up by the rest of the world.
Yeah. So as Monica Crowley points out, well, first of all, Peter Schiff then tweeted this. He just said the petrodollar's days are numbered. China will not likely be paying for Saudi oil in U.S. dollars. So we are seeing sort of the final throes of what was once a powerful reserve currency. What does a digital version of this portend?
I mean, that hegemony, though, obtained by cheating. We went over that earlier this week. If you roll back the tape and watch our history lesson on that, it was not like we earned it. So, and many of you in the chat said, well, that serves you right.
Karma, many of you said, yeah.
Okay, but that doesn't mean it's going to feel good on the rest of us because we're sort of used to living this way and we're going to have to get creative.
Yeah, we're going to have to see how it hits us. I mean, but here's what Monica Crowley, she puts a pin in it by saying this is the end of the U.S. dollar as we know it. Watch.
The fact that oil has always been traded in dollars. If that were to end, that would mean the end of the U.S. dollar.
Yeah. So let us know what you think about all this in the comments below. Next week starts the digital dollar transition process, April 1st, and then the fully implemented Fed rollout in the middle of July. Let's see how much coverage the mainstream media gives to this and what this means for the United States dollar going forward and the tracking that's going to come all with it. So tracking, we didn't even get into the surveillance piece of this at all. I mean,
Does it mean though if oil stops, if like basically energy in general stops being traded in the U.S. dollar, does that mean we get to stop bombing people for it, or are we going to keep doing that? Because
I don't know.
That's all we have left.
Well, Fareed Zakaria just said there our superpower is the U.S. dollar. What he actually should have said is the U.S. dollar is a superpower because of weapons, because it's not tied to gold or anything. So it's tied to the power and the military of the United States right now. So I don't know. Maybe now we go nuts and we amplify. We do more bombing in order to try to prove our point.
That's conjecture. Who knows?
Who knows? We've got more news to get to.
Pessimism is what that is.
Well, yeah, but I'm really pessimistic lately, given what they've done to this economy and what they've done to this country. It's really, really troubling. So,
well, this next segment on Syria and occupation in Somalia as well is not going to make you feel any better. Someone in the chat said they like the sort of fear. Can I use that word? It's like PORN.
Oh, I don't care.
Yeah. Okay. So I don't know about the censorship here, but fear porn. It's like, give it to me. I want to hear all of it. So we will. We'll give it to you. We're not here to make you scared on purpose. We're here to empower you. And I think the more that you understand things, the less confusing it is. And then you just feel sort of more empowered because I saw a meme recently said, you need to get yourself a conspiracy theorist friend because you're going to need one to understand what's going to happen next. So, we're here to give you all the theories. And then if you feel like you maybe understand it contextually, it doesn't feel quite so upsetting. I don't know. Let us know how you actually feel about hearing all of this. I appreciate that you're here.
To quote Pulp Fiction, if my answers frighten you, perhaps you should cease asking scary questions. Like, it's not fear mongering. It's just, this is what's going on.
Yeah.
And it's scary.
Right, exactly. Like the Fed is doing this starting on Monday. So that's what's happening. And then it officially rolls out in July. And we're already seeing them pull back on our ability to use cash at many different government installations and parks and museums and the pieces of, and you're seeing Starbucks going cashless. Like these things are starting to happen. So we can ignore them, bury our heads in the sand to our own detriment.
Yep.
All right, more news to get to. We're going to talk about Syria, this ridiculous moment in the United Nations, and other big stories. We're going to also look at the James O'Keefe story, which is, we're going to show you some of that video. It's really remarkable. And we went down a Federal Elections Commission rabbit hole today and looked at a lot of this corruption that's happening right now as it relates to Democrats' money laundering, perhaps. We're also going to look at the Twitter censorship that unfolded over the past 24 hours. Marjorie Taylor Greene and others had their Twitter accounts blocked for calling attention to something that happened in Nashville. So we'll talk about all of that and more. But first, right now, all you need to see what's going on with the U.S. dollar. I hope you're protecting yourselves. It's no secret that experts are predicting a massive recession heading our way. Layoffs are already happening by the tens of thousands. Big tech companies that you thought don't lay people off, they never lay people off. They're always hiring. Now they're laying tens of thousands of people off right now. Government continuing to print more money. This move towards a U.S. digital dollar, further devaluing the U.S. dollar. last year was terrible for most investors. That is, unless you had your money in precious metals and were protecting your family. So Natali and I are big investors in gold and silver and make sure that a good portion of our wealth that we have earned for many, many years of working day, nights, and overnight shifts, and God knows how many hours we've put in. We've converted a lot of those dollars into gold and silver to protect our family. And if you'd like to do that, our friends over at Lear Capital can help you get started with a self-directed account that will actually help you grow with gold and silver inside of your self-directed account. You can call Lear Capital today at 1-800-613-3557 or go to learredacted.com. Again, that phone number on your screen, 1-800-613-3557. Give them a call and they'll get a free gold kit. You can also go to learredacted.com and you can learn more there as well. And again, right now they're giving away a free ounce of silver for every ounce of gold that you buy. Free money. So a free ounce of silver for every ounce of gold that you buy. Gold coins, and shipped right to your house, and that you can also keep in your self-directed account as well. So Lear, thank you for supporting what we do here on this show.
All right. I am holding back a sneeze right now, and it's torture.
That's the worst. Do you want me
if it happens, guys, I'm going to go like this.
No, the worst is because, if you're about to sneeze and you tell someone and then someone goes, don't, then it gets stuck, and then you're kind of like in that about to sneeze phase for like 5 minutes.
Right now, but I'm going to try and get through this next segment and see what happens. It's so itchy. I think it's just allergy season, and I apologize if that is distracting at all. I have a little bit of the smelly cat voice, Yeah. So we're going to get through it. I apologize. This is not normal, Natali.
Everyone was dealing with this. I was outside doing work on my laptop for the show today because it was so nice outside. So I was preparing for the show that way. And I was sitting there and I went to get a glass of water and I came back and my laptop was covered in pollen.
Yeah.
Like in one, few minutes, it was just like covered in a layer of pollen. So
yeah.
Anyway.
Okay. All right. So the United Nations isn't sure at all if the U.S. occupation of Syria is bad. It's maybe, they don't know. If it's Russia, yeah, it's bad. But the U.S., that's a metaphorical question, really. Can we call in Albert Camus? This exchange was highlighted by Caitlin Johnstone. It is between China Global Television Network's Zhu Denzi and the UN Deputy Spokesperson for the Security General, Farhan Haq. It highlights just how far the United Nations is willing to crawl up the United States butthole. Yes, I said butthole. This reporter, Denzi, has done on-the-ground reporting in Syria, so he knows that the U.S. occupation there is illegal and unwanted.
Oh, wait, he's been to Syria? He's a journalist?
He has actually been there.
Okay.
He is asking about the attack last week when the U.S. retaliated for a base that was bombed by a drone attack. 1 U.S. contractor was killed and 5 other service members were injured. Now, as a reminder, Syria considers that the U.S. presence there is an illegal occupation. They do not want them there. They maintain sovereignty. Here is Denzi pushing the UN on this matter. And the person who's responding, Haq, H-A-Q, gets our award for most snivelly diplomat of the week. Watch.
Yes, Deji.
Couple of questions on Syria. Yesterday, there's a drone attack to a U.S. base in northeast Syria, which resulted in one death and 6 injured. After that, U.S. launched a airstrike, also killed 11 people in Syria. Any reaction from the Secretary General on this incident?
Oh, well, of course, we continue to be worried about all of the continuing tensions, and we are trying to see what can be done to lower the tensions from different forces in Syria, and we'll continue with those efforts.
Do you not to urge everybody to respect the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Syria?
Well, of course, that's a given, and obviously it's important that the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Syria is respected. At the same time, you're aware of the complexity of the situation of foreign forces, but we call for them to exercise restraint.
But do you think the presence of the U.S. military in Syria is illegal or not?
that's not an issue that we're dealing with at this stage. There's been a war.
But is that because it sounds very familiar. This week we talk a lot about the UN Charter, the international law, and relative resolutions. But it sounds to me a foreign presence, foreign military-based presence in another country without invitation sounds like something else to me. You know.
I'll leave your analysis to you. There's at this stage.
What's the difference between Syria,
there's no,
the situation in Syria, and the situation in Ukraine?
There's no U.S. armed forces inside of Syria, and so I don't have a. It's not a parallel situation.
You're
to some of the
sure
others.
there's no U.S. military personnel?
I believe there's military activity.
Yeah,
but in terms of a ground presence in Syria, I'm not aware of that.
Okay, 5 U.S. service members were injured in that attack. If there were no U.S. service members in Syria, how could they got injured? That's weird, right? Should I ask you about that? And by the way, if you're talking about the resolution, the international law, here is the resolution from Security Council 2254, I believe. It says in its PA paragraph, reaffirming its strong commitment to the sovereignty, independence, unity, and territorial integrity of the Syrian Arab Republic, and to the purposes and principles of the Charter of the United Nations.
Yes, I'm aware of that, and as you see, that is accepted by the members of the Security Council itself.
Yeah, so again, back to my question, is that illegal to have presence in Syria for the U.S. base? According to the relevant resolution that I just read out.
Yes, the relevant resolution does call for that, and we call on all countries to respect that. I wouldn't go beyond that at this stage.
Well,
Yes. Philip.
That ask questions, and he goes on to ask further questions. But
he's like, does anyone else have a question? Oh, we have to go back to you again. Oh, you. Okay, another question?
So there's that you had shut off the audio, I think, and that it sort of.
Sorry, because we had.
So we're back, but
it was a long soundbite. Oh, sorry.
Oh, okay. Did you get to hear the whole audio?
Well,
Maybe you didn't hear all of our banter about it, but you heard the whole segment.
I cut it because it was a long soundbite, and you were blowing your nose, so that's why I
always blaming me.
Well, you were sniffling, and I didn't want it, and you were about to sneeze. So anyway, while
we were watching that, I dug through our archival footage because this apparently doesn't exist, but this is 100% not U.S. troops in Syria stealing oil. So I don't know who this is, but if we're not there.
Well, he specifically says, but there's no U.S. armed forces in Syria. So probably those military trucks are carrying flowers, I would assume, because he tells us they're not armed.
Well, and I love how he says they're not on the ground, they're in the air, and that's way different.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, things get hot in there. That guy needs some water.
That guy deserves an award.
No, I mean, this reporter.
The reporter,
yes, this reporter deserves an award.
Yes, the reporter.
Yeah. That's like how to make someone melt right in front of you. Now, I don't know why he would say there is no U.S. armed forces in Syria. If that were true, why did the U.S. Congress just vote on a bill to end military presence in Syria earlier this month? That's weird, right? See how far it gets you. You should look up your representative and do the same. But this is what I got from it because Representative Chrissy Houlihan, in fact, voted against withdrawing troops in Syria. I don't know how much further we'll get in Somalia, but it's worth a voice. At least because if you do, you get a really important voicemail like this one that I got.
Hi, I'm calling from the office of Congresswoman Chrissy Houlihan. I wanted to let you know that we received your email showing support for withdrawing troops from Syria. I passed your message along to Congresswoman Houlihan and our team. And if you have any further questions or comments on this issue, please feel free to reach back out to us. We really appreciate you sharing your thoughts on these types of matters that are important to you. And hope you have a great day and take care. Bye.
Of course, now as a representative, you're representing us, and we're asking you to get American forces out of Syria, stop an illegal occupation of a country, stop stealing their oil, stop destabilizing that country. That's what we're asking you to do, Chrissy Houlihan.
Now, I was just outed myself. He said that I left an email and not a voicemail. So I apologize. I may have misspoke there, but I did send emails. I will send some more. Who knows? If we all send them,
It's
maybe
okay
we get
because
yes votes.
He got right into the Representative Houlihan's office and told her about your email. He said,
I'm
I'm just going to pass that
sure
word
he
right
did.
along. I'm sure he just brushed up from his chair, went and go, hey, wait before you vote.
Hot off the presses. Here it is. Here it is. I'm going to bring it in here.
The Morrises don't want you to leave troops in Syria. Got it. I'm going to do not that.
So, but what are her special interests want her to do? What do the military contractors want her to do? The military contracts, the military industrial complex want her to do. That's going to be more important than you or me any day of the week, right?
Clearly.
Wherever the big money is coming from.
Clearly. So what are the odds here that this bill gets through the House of Representatives? And even if it does, it most likely would never get through the Senate, which is democratically controlled. And the president wants to expand war in Somalia. So clearly the Democrats want whatever the president wants. So I'm not optimistic. I'm going to give this a 10%. What about you? You want to put some odds on it?
I give it maybe a 4%, 4% chance of passing.
All right.
And, just as an example, like we're from this area, like what you could be doing with that money that we're wasting in Syria is, doing things in your own district, right? There's a lot of problems in Reading, Pennsylvania that need your help, right? So that could be a priority. That could be where you could work to.
Yeah, Reading is where this massive chocolate factory fire is. I'm sure you've been
Explosion,
following
of course.
that. Yeah.
The Palmer factory. Yeah, but even beyond that, I mean,
could you imagine?
schools and jobs and infrastructure and bridges that are crumbling all through that area, factories that have left, all of those things, right? All the Reading outlets, gone now, mostly gone now. They're not what they used to be. So there's a lot you could really focus on instead of Syria and illegal occupation. Go ahead, David.
Well, I was just going to say, imagine if we cut 3/4 of the military budget federally, we would still be the largest military. And think of what good that could do here in this country.
Yeah,
it's
you
crazy.
know what? I'm glad you brought this up. Are you done with your thoughts on this? I don't want to step on you. Okay. Because I heard a lot of talk over the past few days about Donald Trump's big speech, that he gave the other day where he's going to tackle and go after the deep state, right? Which is amazing. Great. Awesome. Like we need him to be talking about that because he had a chance to drain the swamp when he was there and he did not do that. In fact, he added to it. That was great criticism of Donald Trump. That's not mine. That's just well known, right? Even among longtime supporters, like he did not drain the swamp. And I think one of the arguments is that he was completely controlled by the deep state, right? They pushed him out. There was people running the show from behind the scenes. He brought in people that were part of the deep state. He didn't realize it, all of that, whatever. I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt. Now he's calling for the getting rid of the deep state, right? No discussion about the deep state can happen unless someone opens their mouth and talks about the military-industrial complex. All of these discussions about the deep state that I've heard, I even heard like Alex Jones talking about it. Great. Like they were talking about it in Trump's speech and he was saying, great, that's great speech. He's been critical of him. I know that. Any discussion about the deep state that does not include discussions about eradicating the military industrial complex, I don't even want to hear it because that's the deep state. That's what's driving all of this. I mean, $900 billion a year military industrial complex budget. Are you kidding me? That's the deep state. That's what's running the show. So unless I hear, I want to hear that from Trump's mouth. I want to hear that from Trump's mouth.
Yeah, because what is he actually referring to if he's saying the deep state when that is? Because if you look, it's the CIA, it's all that, but that's all still military.
Yeah.
No, I mean, all of that funding we've got to start talking about this. Like, we need to start pushing these people in this election cycle, and I'm going to start doing it here on this show. But any discussion about the deep state needs to include this behemoth, what Dwight D. Eisenhower warned us about, and we need to be vocal about it on this channel, and we need to push the people that are covering those stories. We need to push the independent media. We need to be out there pushing the Tim Pools of the world to talk about it, and all of these people. We all need to be together on this and push this, because it's something I'm very, very passionate about, which is ending this military-industrial complex. I used to speak about it on Fox back in the day when I anchored Fox and Friends, and I would get pushback, about it. I would call it out on the air, and people were like, "What? You're saying that on Fox?" Yes. This is an absolute disaster, and we need to eradicate it. So I'm going to draw that line in the sand right here on the show.
Okay, and I will be prepared for that.
Be prepared. Be prepared to stand by.
You have my sword, sir.
Let's run. Let's do it. All right. Let's talk about this story. Here's a question for you. Does this sound fishy to you? Let's just throw this out there. You guys all answer me in the chat right now. Does this sound fishy to you? Let me give you the scenario, okay? You're a registered Democrat. You just play along here, okay? Play along. Role play. Let's do a little role playing. You are a registered Democrat. And from time to time, you donate $5 to $10 here and there to a candidate of your choice, okay? Maybe once a year you do this because you don't have a lot of extra money in your pocket. So once a year you do this. Maybe you throw $10 to a candidate or a cause that you care about in the Democratic world, okay? But somewhere at the Democratic National Committee or somewhere in the halls of Democratic politics, someone has taken your $5 to $10 donation and turned it on paper into a $50,000 to $100,000 donation. So where you, John Smith, donated $5, but the computer shows you've donated $20,000, $30,000, $40,000. And it's not just once a year with this $5 donation. No, instead, the computer is showing that you're doing this thousands of times a year. Thousands of times a year, and there are only 365 days in a year, right? Except for leap year. And that means that records show you've donated 1,000 times more than you did. And every day you're sending multiple donations, apparently, because on these ledgers, it's showing that you wake up in the morning, donate $5. By lunchtime, you've donated another $20. By dinner time, another $100. And this goes on and on and on. You might assume a mistake was made, right? Like a bank error screwed you over, something like that. But what if you're not alone? What if you're not the only person that this has been happening to? What if hundreds of thousands of Democratic voters had the same thing happen to them unknowingly? Donations artificially inflated, showing that you donated 1,000 times the amount that you actually donated. And thousands of times a year, multiple times a day.
Well, I would want that taxable donation receipt on my taxes
right.
then.
They're not even aware of it.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. It says here, according to the Democrats, that I've donated $200,000.
But I really think I donated 40
or none.
Yeah.
I would like that receipt. I'll take that to the IRS.
Sure.
Sounds pretty fishy, the whole thing, doesn't it?
I'm just amazed at how generous I am. I didn't realize I was that nice of a guy.
I'm going to show up at your door and show you, Philip Foster, you've been donating $5 20 times a day to this cause. Throughout the whole day, you're doing it. You don't even know. You're such a good person.
I need to report that on my taxes.
Where's my Humanitarian of the Year award? Come on.
So it's pretty damn fishy. Sounds like a massive money laundering scheme being run by Democrats, funneling phony money to candidates and pretending that voters donated that money. So where did this money come from if not from these donors? So James O'Keefe, excellent journalist James O'Keefe, who discovered and wanted to get to the bottom of all of this. You'll remember O'Keefe, he founded a little journalism company called Project Veritas. Recently, Project Veritas caught Pfizer executives on camera admitting to mutating COVID virus in order to profit off of vaccines. For that, of course, the backlash was severe for their coverage of that. And against Project Veritas was swift. Pfizer didn't like that the truth was being exposed. The deep state forced James O'Keefe, pushed him out of Project Veritas. He started his own company called the O'Keefe Media Group. And this is his first bombshell report after leaving Project Veritas. And it's a doozy. Watch.
FEC data shows that some senior citizens across the U.S. have been donating thousands of times per year. Some of these individuals' names and addresses are attached to over $200,000 in contributions. We went and knocked on a few of their doors to corroborate the data that we received from a group of citizen journalists called Election Watch in Maryland. This is James O'Keefe with OMG. I'm here in Annapolis, Maryland. It's an individual who has donated a total of $217,000 made through 12,000 different contributions in a 3-year period of time. Now, sometimes these contributions have been made in variations of his name and variations of his address. You see this chart here. This chart shows a breakdown of the committees that were earmarked to receive the donations made through Act Blue. Cindy No of Annapolis, Maryland, who in the year 2022 allegedly contributed over 1,000 times to Act Blue, totaling $18,849.77. That means Cindy would have had to donate 3 times a day, every day, for the whole year. Hello? Hey there, Cindy. My name's James O'Keefe, and we're doing a story on the number of people that have donated with your address. Did you donate to Act Blue, a political cause? How many times a month do you donate to Act Blue?
I don't know. I don't know how many times. I don't understand why I'm getting this.
Well, the question is, you did donate to Act Blue, right?
Yes, once in a while, yes.
Did you donate 1,009 times?
I don't know. I mean, once in a while I donate $5 or so dollars or something like that during election year.
What about $18,850?
I doubt that.
Not that many donations.
No, I don't think so.
What the Federal Election Commission indicates that much money was donated to Act Blue and Biden for president.
I wish I could have donated $18,000 to Biden's presidency.
How much did you donate?
I don't know. I don't
Order
know.
of magnitude.
Like I said, I donate $5 once in a while because I have various charities I like to give to.
Do you know people are using your address?
I don't think so.
So, interestingly enough, she said she donates something like $5 a month. But we're getting kind of a pattern of reactions here as we do this. The woman was a very nice lady. She talked to us. So, interestingly enough, it's even in a two-party consent state like Maryland, with the camera out in the open, people are still being honest. This is sort of new to me. Usually we use the covert cameras, but maybe the camera's a truth serum.
But does it sound about right that there's been 18,000 contributions?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
In the amount of like $170,000?
Absolutely not.
Really?
Yes.
Okay. So that's not you doing that?
No, it's not.
But does the frequency ring a bell that you're donating that much every 10 times a day sometimes?
No.
No. Do you think someone is maybe fraudulently debiting your accounts or something?
They must be. Act Blue is the one I use for political donations. Yep. And I do not make that kind of political donations.
Right. So right here, it's 18,672 different contributions that total an amount of $170,000.221.
No.
Hey there, Mr. Riggs.
Yes.
James O'Keefe, just asking about those contributions. We spoke on the phone. Have you donated to Act Blue in the past?
I don't believe so.
You're listed as someone who's given over 31,000 individual contributions to various causes for a total of $230,000 using your name in this address.
No, that's not us.
That's not you?
No.
Have you ever donated to Act Blue? Or
I think my wife has, but nowhere near.
Are you aware that people are using your name?
No.
Have you donated to Act Blue in the past?
I don't believe so.
So this just goes on and on. There are plenty of people who say, yeah, like $5 here, $10 here, but not thousands, and not with this kind of frequency.
So I went down to Netflix.
And they're Democratic sympathizers. They're people who say, yes, I do support this cause, but I'm definitely not giving this much. So there is some nefarious actor here who is taking these legitimate donors and then somehow using them to funnel money from where?
Right. And add layering on top of their donations. Oh, you made one donation for $5? Why don't we add, according to your name, thousands of donations because you made one donation? I went down a rabbit hole with the FEC today, and you can all do this, by the way, in your neck of the woods. If you'd like to try this at home, just go to the FEC's website, fec.gov, and here you can take a look at what I found, which is just going to maybe I didn't upload it. Shoot. I thought I did. Anyway, just went to the FEC's website and just punch in.
Yeah, hang on, I have it.
Oh, you do? Okay. Put in the address, the zip code, put in your, here it is. So here's the Federal Election Commission website. Just go to search all campaign finance data, type in your state, put in your zip code if you want, do whatever you want. You can do it by district. I did it by our district, District 6, wanted to see. And once you start diving into the data and you want to see who's all the big donors, you're going to see Act Blue. Like, I clicked on House elections, and you can see over and over and over under the individual contributions section, which amounts almost to $1 billion in individual contributions in just that area, is unbelievable. Look, and all Act Blue, Act Blue, Act Blue, Act Blue. And then what's really weird is that a number of names begin to pop up time and time again, making similar donations on the same day over and over again. A number of other citizen journalists have also taken this on and have found the same thing to be true. That these people are using the same name and donating thousands of dollars. It's really remarkable. It's really remarkable. So what the hell is going on here?
Where is this money coming from?
Yeah, and why is it being funneled through individual donors under the auspices of individual donors? Where are these billions coming from?
And I want to point out, like, people in chat saying James O'Keefe is a joke and all this other stuff. Like, he's like Julian Assange, never had to retract a story. And there have been like 328 stories by the media that they've had to retract that they did about James O'Keefe. So, you know, like, he backs up his stuff with evidence. So try not to write this off. This is an important story.
I hate that kind of stuff. Shooting the messenger. Like, let's talk about the actual story. Like, this is
exactly.
I confirmed it today.
Well, also, at the end of this, he's inviting everyone to do this. It's not like this big exclusive. He's saying, I did this in my neighborhood. You can too. Here's how you look up these donations like Clayton did. Here's how you see which ones seem a little fishy. And especially, you know, in your area, certain neighborhoods, certain zip codes might be the big political donation zip codes, and certain zip codes might not be. And you can go ask yourself. He's saying, if you see these kind of big outliers, go ask these people. Let me know what happens. We could all be doing this. So then, you know, you can't hate everybody who does it, because we all should be motivated to see who is violating campaign finance laws.
Yeah, and look, you know, yeah, exactly. And he, right off the bat, at the very beginning of this report, points out the citizen journalists who've been working on this. And he gives them credit right at the very beginning. And then, yes, he invites all of us to go and do it. So I took him up on that challenge. I've interviewed James many, many times back in my days when he was just starting as a journalist on Fox. Yeah, he was quite a bit of a rabble-rouser, a muckraker, if you will. But this is him giving credit to the citizen journalists and asking all of us to go out and look at it. And we did in our own backyard and found a number of very odd transactions piling up. But you can try it yourself. I'd love to hear the response. Drop us a comment below in this video when we publish this specific clip. Did you find examples of this? Go to the fec.gov, type in your information and see what you find. Let us know in the description below.
All right. Well, we're going to talk about the censorship on Twitter around the shooting in Nashville, an awful story, and also a story about how one ideology is held to account and another is not. So we're going to get to that in a minute. But first, we want to tell you about our friends over at Tax USA. Because if you owe back taxes or have unfiled returns, don't let the government take advantage of you. Tax Network USA is a nationwide tax resolution firm who can protect your rights and settle your back taxes. In some cases, they can even zero out your balance. There are experts all in the IRS programs, and they understand tax law, so you don't have to. Over over the last 14 years, Tax Network USA has saved over $1 billion in back taxes for their clients. They can even file your yearly audit to protect you from your yearly return to protect you from audits. The Biden administration will be overhauling the IRS so they can levy bank accounts, garnish wages, and Social Security benefits like never before. They can even seize your property like your business, home, or retirement accounts. Whether you owe a few thousand or a few million, they can help you. Even if you haven't filed in years, they can help you. Even if you have a payment arrangement, they can still help you. So call them, call the experts at Tax Network USA right now, or visit taxnetworkusa.com/redacted. Okay.
And yeah, grab some water. I should mention that, yeah, we have a. Go ahead. Natalie's not feeling well.
I need to sneeze, and it just won't happen. And I'm so frustrated.
How do you provoke a sneeze? I know. I
know. I can't look at the sun. I was trying that with the studio lights because we have these big. It's just not.
It's not working.
It's not working, and it's so itchy.
Did you just say it's just not?
It's just.
We could do the rest of the show with this shot, and that way you can do whatever you want.
Okay, and I'll just talk.
Stick on this
because,
and then you guys move your lips.
Because the pollen or whatever, and then it's just so annoying. So anyway, just if you need to get some water and take a break for a second, I was just going to say, if you do subscribe to the channel, your name will pop up here on the big screen. So thank you for supporting independent journalism and what we do here. I should also mention we have a daily newsletter that's totally free if you'd like to subscribe to that. Yeah, we don't talk about it enough. No, I'm just joking. But, we get hundreds of new subscribers every day because we mention it. And then when I don't mention it, we don't. So it's important because there's no other place for you to find it. It's not like there's billboards in your neck of the woods. The only way you'd learn about our daily newsletters if I tell you about it. And it brings you a lot of value, I hope. You can read it in about 5 or 10 minutes, first thing in the morning over your cup of coffee. Let us know in the chat if you enjoy the newsletter. Again, we try to cover some of the market news, and then about 4 or 5 big stories. A lot of them, the mainstream media maybe is covering, or they're putting propaganda on it, and we try to cut through that. And it's totally free to sign up. So just go to redacted.inc. That's the website, redacted.inc. Put in your email. You'll have to verify your email, and then you'll get this beautiful newsletter delivered to your inbox tomorrow morning on what is tomorrow, Thursday? Yeah, tomorrow's Thursday. So you'll get the Thursday newsletter tomorrow morning for free to start your day off.
All right, well, we want to talk about censorship of one ideology and not another. And this is an important week to do that. So let me get this straight. Tucker Carlson should be held responsible for the Buffalo shooting of 2022 because he validated race ideology that was important to the shooter. Do you remember that narrative that was flying all over the place after that shooting last year? But we cannot even discuss gender ideology of the Nashville shooting this week without getting censored. That is happening. Now, we are going to discuss this mass shooting, and I want to present this caveat because we normally don't cover mass shootings for a couple of reasons. When I was a newspaper reporter, we were careful about not doing things that we thought might create copycats. And so there is definitely a danger of romanticizing these types of events and inspiring copycat events. And also, I do not ever want to commit the sin of reducing mass shootings to one thing. I think that is what is so odious about what politicians do, is that as soon as this happens, we get a tweet, thoughts and prayers, mental health, thoughts and prayers, gun control, thoughts and prayers, toxic masculinity. That is dangerous reductionism. It does not solve the problem that American children are not safe to go to school without the risk of gun violence. What I want to talk about here is competing ideologies, though, and their ability to be spoken in the age of censorship. Because this week we saw that one radical ideology is protected and the other is vilified. And what I would like to make the case here is that all radical ideologies should be rejected. Because why does someone become radical? It's because they feel so powerless in this world that they think they have to then act out in violence. It's like living as a toddler because you have no power to create the world that you want to live in, and you feel like you have to then become violent. That's sort of the definition of someone who's radicalized, right? The Nashville shooter was a transgendered biological woman, and they left a manifesto that has yet to be released to the public. The Buffalo shooter, meanwhile, was a white male who also left a manifesto that he released himself, and it was focused on race and white replacement theory, meaning that the white race will be a minority in the near future. This was his ideology, and that caused him so much anxiety that he allowed them to inform his actions and resorted to violence. Now, here is CNN at the time, Brian Stelter. Don't miss that guy, blaming the Buffalo shooter's ideology and Tucker Carlson on this mass tragic shooting.
Another hate crime at a grocery store. Those words shouldn't even compute. They shouldn't fit in the same sentence. A hate crime at a grocery store. This time it was Buffalo residents in a predominantly black neighborhood who were just trying to take care of their families when a white gunman opened fire on Saturday, killing 10 people and injuring 3 others. All the evidence so far suggests that this young man, this suspect, just 18 years old, was poisoned by lies and BS from online message boards. Now, police, members of the media are going through his so-called manifesto, full of hateful memes and ideas, and some of the same messages shared by the Christchurch mosque killer. Yes, it's the great replacement theory rearing its ugly head again, this white replacement nonsense. It convinces isolated men on the internet that a cabal is replacing whites with people of color. It's the same conspiracy theory you hear in prime time on Fox News. So it's important, no, it's essential to map the media environment that preys on white fear.
Okay, the media environment is what they call. This ideology is validated by media environment. So it's contextual. So that shooting should be discussed in terms of the media environment, right? Okay, for that guy. And here he is making a connection to Fox News and Donald Trump, blaming them both for validating the shooter's ideology, even though the shooter's manifesto specifically said that he hated Fox News.
Right, that there is a complex conspiracy theory that's as old as our American society, and in which white Americans are being told and being poisoned through the internet, but also through some relatively mainstream media organizations on the right, being told that they're facing a demographic crisis and that they have to stand up for themselves. And
let's just be clear, Wes, you're talking about Tucker Carlson, you're talking about Laura Ingraham, you're talking about the biggest stars on Fox News. Is it too simplistic to reduce this to a single television show, though?
Yes.
I'm seeing a lot of that on social media. Just blaming Fox, just blaming Tucker. And I think there's a lot of blame to go around.
There's a ton. I mean, look, let's be clear. The stuff Tucker and Laura Ingraham say every night, it could be written by white supremacists very often. There's a section of this manifesto where the shooter starts talking about, people always say diversity is strength. How is it strength? I could hear it in Tucker's voice. He says this all the time.
Okay, so this guy, Wesley Lowery, says later that we need to take ideology seriously if it could lead to violence. So can we replace then race theory with gender ideology and have a real discussion about that as it relates to the Tennessee shooting? My guess is that no one on CNN would actually do that. And this divide is important because we cannot condemn one form of extremism and protect another. We do so at our collective peril. When the Buffalo shooting happened earlier this week, no one worried that life would get, the Buffalo shooting happened last year. No one worried that life is going to get harder for white people because of this. I didn't see any of that. But that's exactly the connection the media is making about this shooting, that it will make things harder from the group of the shooter. Watch.
Nashville police keep identify the shooter as 28-year-old Audrey Hale, who police say identifies as transgender. That news has already prompted some attacks against the trans community. KPRC2's Bryce Newberry picks up our coverage from here.
Demonstrators at the Texas state capitol Monday fighting against anti-trans bills being considered by state lawmakers as news broke that the Nashville school shooter identifies as transgender.
It doesn't excuse anything that happened. I am concerned about how opposition and people who are anti-trans will try to spin this. Concern
about tweets like this from GOP Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, writing, How much hormones like testosterone and medications for mental illness was the transgender Nashville school shooter taking? Everyone can stop blaming guns now.
The comparison of they did it because they're trans is very unfair to trans people.
Andrea Segovia from the Transgender Education Network of Texas joined Monday's battle at the Capitol, fighting House Bill 1686, which would block doctors from providing gender transition health care treatment to children. Now, with another reason for the Texas trans community to be in the spotlight and at least 2 months remaining of the legislative session, advocates worry the attacks aren't over.
You can't say that because one person did something that's a characteristic or reason to be cruel to trans people.
And tonight, while facts about the Nashville shooting are still surfacing, the Human Rights Campaign says trans people are much more likely to be victims of violence rather than perpetrators. Writing in a statement, regardless of the reason for this shooting, the use of violence is reprehensible, and we renew our call for common sense gun safety legislation. In the newsroom tonight, I'm Bryce Newberry, KPRC 2 News.
Oh, interesting.
Okay, Bryce Newberry, you should be ashamed of yourself for that, for worrying about the group of the shooter and not the group of the victims. Shame on you. Also, the statistic that you share in the end, that trans people are more likely to be victims of violence than perpetrators, is false. It's actually the opposite. It's demonstrably true. We covered a riot this weekend in New Zealand where trans people were the perpetrators of violence. This reporter actually picked up a microphone and a camera after 9-year-old babies were murdered to worry that the group that the shooter belonged to would not be safe. Now, did anyone do that when the ideology of the Buffalo shooter was because no. These are two different ideologies, and we have to use the same if we're analyzing the media landscape, right? This Bryce Newberry did not once mention the victims of the shooter. He is linking the gender bills to violence with validation. Damn him for that, literally. I don't literally damn people, but if that's the sentiment I feel.
It's infuriating. When he just read that statistic off, he's like, well, trans people are much more likely to receive violence than not. And back to you over there in the newsroom. No, you literally just read a lie. You literally just lied to your audience to push some ideology.
And chose which ideology you're going to talk about. So now we're going to talk about the censorship of people wanting to make this connection. Does this shooting exist in the ideology of the shooter? Is that something that's worth talking about? Is it possibly something that she was radicalized? Because a lot of Antifa members are transgendered, and they do actually feel like words are hate, and they must respond with violence because words are violence too. That is literally the thought process around this. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, and I just want to point out, like, all of this political rhetoric makes the underlying things that could be important not important, and that is the fact that this is a girl that was taking testosterone, and we don't know what those testosterone levels do to a person to make them maybe, think different things or think different ways, and that's all going to get swept under the rug and not even looked at because it's all about the ideology and protecting that.
You know why we don't know that is because no one will do medical studies on it because it's unethical. It's unethical to submit children to hormone, and she was not a child. So you can only
self-select, right? Like by pulling adults in, like, hey, does anyone want to volunteer?
You can only test this on adults.
For this test, where we're going to check and see the mental stability of someone that pumps them, a woman that pumps herself full of male hormones.
Yeah.
Like, do you want to self-select into that test? Because we're not going to do it to children because that's what Nazis would do.
Now, it's uncomfortable to talk about this because a lot of liberals want to validate gender ideology, maybe because they just want to feel accepting because of good intentions, which is great. But there's no data that shows that gender transition cures gender dysphoria and anxiety. That persists no matter what chemicals or surgery you do to your body. In fact, trying to live as a gender when people instinctually can tell that you're not that gender causes people a lot of pain. It's not society's fault that humans are meant to distinguish gender in order to mate with the opposite species. It is society's fault when we tell young people that if people instinctually call out your gender, you're being harmed, and that you must then resort to violence to change that. And it's not good for anyone to overly focus on their appearance and the perception in the world. No one can argue that that is true. Like, you tell your children that, just worry more about what people think of how you look.
Yeah,
You'll be happier that way.
Honey, instead of reading a book or hanging out with your friends, I really want you to be concerned about what other people on TikTok think of you and your body.
Yeah.
Like, that's good parenting.
Now, as far as I know, no one was punished for linking the Buffalo shooting to the white replacement ideology, even though I think we agree that it is a dangerous oversimplification. But Twitter is suspending accounts of people linking the Nashville shooting to gender ideology. Now, I'm not saying that we should, persecute white people, or that, I'm not at all discussing the merits of race replacement theory. I'm talking about why one group can freely talk about it and one group cannot. Why can we freely talk about white supremacy and shoot that down, but we cannot have a critical discussion about gender ideology? This is dangerous. So here are some of the people who were speaking about gender ideology as possibly dangerous and were punished by Twitter. This is Eliza Mondegreen, gender researcher, was locked out of her account for posting this image. This is about a trans day of vengeance that's planned for this weekend in Washington, D.C. This is the image that was getting people, Twitter was scanning for this image specifically. Here is her notice from Twitter that she was locked for violating the Twitter rules. She contested this, said, what is it? What are the rules I'm violating? They did not tell her. This is Benjamin Boyce. He too was saying, that he was just posting the image. He is a podcaster who discusses the gender industrial complex, wherein the medical industry profits greatly from changing bodies with surgery and chemicals and medication. All he said was the day of vengeance did not age well before it happened. You can't say that. The Federalist CEO, Sean Davis, was also locked out of his account for saying that the event still was happening in the wake of the shooting. So, you would think that maybe this event would not age well and would be canceled, but it is still going forward. Recall when Donald Trump went to an NRA rally after a mass shooting and people thought that was offensive, but this ideology persists. The Daily Wire's Michael Knowles was suspended for posting a Bible verse that mentions vengeance, as in, do not seek it.
Right. The Bible verse is about not seeking vengeance.
Right. And he was punished for that. The Bible verse says, "Beloved, never avenge yourselves, but leave it to the wrath of God. For it is written, vengeance is mine, I shall repay." So it's like, don't seek vengeance. You can't say that. I mean, it's a pretty peaceful tweet, right? Marjorie Taylor Greene was locked out of her account. And in this thread, a Twitter executive responds to it because it's Ian Miles Chong, who says that Twitter is, cracking down on anyone who posts about this trans day of vengeance. And Ella Irwin is the Twitter representative saying, yes, we automatically sweep our platform and removed over 5,000 tweets about this poster. We do not support tweets that incite violence, irrespective of who posts them. Vengeance does not imply peaceful protest. Organizing or support for peaceful protest is okay. So maybe Twitter is removing this because they're deciding not to promote something that might glorify violence, because that, in the wake of January 6th, they said, oh, we should have censored that. Maybe, this discussion. But Marjorie Taylor Greene is saying that's not true. You actually are punishing. I was locked out of my congressional account for 7 days. So it's not just they're sweeping it, but they are punishing. The group that puts this event on, they say they do not mean violence when they talk about vengeance. Here's their statement. They're so sad about the victims of this tragedy, and they reject any connection between that event and theirs. They say vengeance means fighting back with vehemence. A strong word. It's an alliteration, too.
So you're just substituting vengeance for vehemence.
They're saying we don't think violence is the answer. Right? It's a call for our allies to stand up and fight to bring down the forces that try to divide and subjugate us all.
Well, then why don't you name your event a day of vehemence?
Oh, well, or a day of
we promoted the rage against the rage against the war machine protests.
Yeah.
We promoted that. We've had Nick Brana on the show, Roger Waters, all these people who were speaking at that event. Like, we were happy to promote having rage against war, right?
Right.
We want peace. So rage is a good word. You could use rage.
Rage is an appropriate emotion, right? You don't have to hurt anybody.
But vengeance.
If you're rageful, right? And notice the open invitation, the poster that's been taken down says, wear a mask, bring a friend. This is an Antifa call to come and rough stuff up because they don't wear a mask having anything to do with COVID. And now the event organizers say this is still going to happen despite this mass shooting because they have distance themselves from it, and I guess that's okay. So today they put this on TikTok, and I ask you, is this the material that looks like? Do you have music for this?
I pulled it because of copyright.
Oh, sorry. Okay, then you can't see how aggressive it is because it's like a. Screw you, mother!
Wait, let me put it back up, and then you can make the sounds for it while it's going on. So hang on.
See if I can
do it. Make sure you do it with vehemence. Okay.
It's like. Like that.
Oh, it's like death metal stuff.
It's kind of like that. It was like that. Did I get that right, Philip?
That sounds pretty good. Yeah.
Do you remember?
Was spot on. I mean, I was checking to see if we got hit for copyright for just how close you were to the actual music.
The band, the band Cannibal Corpse wants to hire you.
Yeah, it was like, hire me, and next I'll do some beatboxing.
Right.
So again, if we're going to follow the lead of the left and take all radical ideology seriously, we've got to question the aggressive tactics of trans rights activists, or TRAs. Again, we covered the Posey Parker violent mob in New Zealand last weekend. There is a faction that thinks violence is the answer because they think words are violence. Misgendering words, they think, require weapons to contend to, according to this ideology. And in both instances, we, of course, can bring mental health into this because gender dysphoria is highly correlated with anxiety. So shall we talk about mental health again? And hormones. Again, is this something to take seriously? Why are these conversations being shut down by social media, but the conversations around race being elevated because it fits into one comfortable narrative of the left, and there's another one that just doesn't? It's too uncomfortable, and that's wrong.
Plus, you cannot question the pharmaceutical industry. Like, we've learned that no matter what we have covered, if the pharmaceutical industry is involved in any way, shape, or form, we cannot say anything about it.
Yeah. So if hormones and that type of medication is being pushed for young children, you better step aside. We should absolutely allow them to have as much of these chemicals flowing through their bodies.
This person was an adult. An adult hyped up on a chemical that her body does not naturally produce.
Right.
Presumably.
And Philip, I know you want to. I want to before you say something. I saw someone on YouTube that was talking about how they were questioning. They were older. They were in their 20s, and they were thinking that they wanted to identify as male. They went to Planned Parenthood, and they had them a prescription for testosterone the following day with no tests.
Yeah.
The following day, like,
because when
and you're talking about.
We've shown you websites
and you're talking about a hormone that's going to change this person's makeup, like completely change their makeup as a human being.
Yeah, right. I mean, ideology is not just like a bowl of trail mix where you just pick out what you want to eat, and say, well, this sort of elevates my status on Twitter if I call out white supremacy, but I cannot be critical about gender ideology because it will not elevate my status. Also, don't pick through trail mix. That's rude.
Yeah, don't pick out
you should just eat the
peanut
whole thing.
M&Ms.
Yeah.
Don't be that guy.
Well,
and leave.
I was going to comment along with what David was saying about like arguing with the pharmaceutical industry. So, like, many people don't realize that you can refuse any medical procedure, even a life-saving procedure. You can refuse it, but you can be forcibly committed and medicated against your will. That is something like psychologically you cannot refuse it. So a court can't force you into brain surgery, but a court can force you to receive like medication for if you are bipolar. So that, I mean, when you look at like the laws we have on people getting committed, like the pharmaceutical industry is very, very deep in what the psychological, industry.
Yeah.
Because you can look it up. Anybody can look it up, but you can be forcibly committed, but you can refuse any surgery, even life-saving.
Yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that, like I said, I want to present this in the context of what's being censored. Why can one group just sort of like work themselves into a tizzy about Tucker Carlson and white supremacy, and another group is censored for asking questions about a competing ideology? Why is that the case online? But at the same time, I don't want to reduce any mass shooting to any one thing, because I really think that that's wrong. So if that was not clear, I want to make that clear.
Right. Well said. Let us know your thoughts on this in the comments below. And and please weigh in on all of our stories here in the comments below. We appreciate it. Like, here's one comment that just came in, and I wanted to address it, from Te Paranga Hermea. Te Paranga Hermea says, Clayton, why do you hate on China? It's so funny you say that, because on this show, very often people say to me regularly, why are you pro-China? So I love when I see, like, I love, like, a day later, like, we do like a story about how China's currency is being tied to gold and commodities, and the US dollar is tied to, and like, arguably, in my opinion, that's better, right? And then the next day I'm critical because of what they're doing with a digital currency, with having it programmed and expiring at a certain point, and also surveillance, and I'm critical of them. So I'm just presenting the news here. I'm critical of them, and I call out when they do good things as well. But I also call out the propaganda, like the Uyghur stuff that we've debunked.
I don't feel like we have any love or hate that you can sort of pull out as like, oh, that's their platform. We take each story as it comes and try and look critically at it. I actually like when people say, like, I can't tell what side they're on, because we're on nobody's side. We just look at each story and try to be critical or thoughtful, or be critical thinkers.
Like someone said, oh, if you guys are like pro Fox News, like no, like I interviewed Tucker Carlson here on the show, but then literally the next day I did a whole segment slamming Sean Hannity for being a warmonger. So I don't know, like, pick your.
Well, and it's also, I saw somebody in the chat, like, when we started talking about the topic earlier, they're like, oh, more of this anti-trans stuff, I'm out of here. But, like, why is it anti-trans to have these conversations? It's not like we're anti-trans. We don't hate trans people. No, we just want to ask questions, just like anything else.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know.
I am anti-medical industrial complex.
Yeah.
I am anti-hurting people's bodies for ideology, and ignoring, straight biological determinism.
Yeah.
And I am anti-transhumanism. Sure, absolutely. Yes. I am not anti-dress, like, in a sort of gender non-conforming way. I don't give a shit. How if you want to wear a dress, if you want to wear makeup, if you want to, like, borrow my heels, cool. But you can't pretend that a male body can get, uterine cancer or whatever. We just can't have those conversations seriously.
Or that a male body can have a baby.
Right.
Right. That can't, I don't know, like, what school you went to, but, like, that can't happen.
And I'm not down for anyone to, like, dogpile my kids for an instinctually calling someone a he or a she. Like, I'm not down for that. I'm not down for reordering society around one single ideology. Doesn't matter what it is. Can be gender, can be race, like, no reordering society for ideology, period. So yeah, that's where I stand. But, we can talk about these things, like, completely, each one, take them one at a time.
Yeah, wear whatever you want. You want to wear a dress, great. Just don't push pharmaceuticals on my 12-year-old and tell them that they need to get a hysterectomy or whatever. Keep that away from me. Please keep that away from me. And that, to me, is, like, sinful and, like, really evil, actually, to push that agenda. We are vehemently anti-war on this show. Like, that is one thing that we are absolutely will stand on this show. So that is one big 100%. Platform we had here. Anti-war on this show. All right, everyone. Again, we have our daily newsletter. Check it out. Redacted.inc is the way to go. And I love that it says, listen to my people. In the chat says, peace to all. Yes. Peace to all. Leave their children alone, Brenda Collins says. Yes. Stephen Wright says, I identify as a toaster. Like that. Cool. Yes. All right, everyone. Thank you, guys. I really appreciate it. And thank you so much for joining us on this Wednesday edition. We'll be back here tomorrow, 4 p.m. Eastern time. Please subscribe. Oh, I should mention, subscribe, turn on that bell notification. Some of you were complaining last night that Rumble was unsubscribing you. The team from Rumble, we reached out to them. They said, wow, that's the first I've heard of this. We're going to look into that. If there's any kind of a bug happening, again, that's not their intention. But they're looking into it, and they'll get back to us with a report on it. But please, if you're not already subscribed, press that subscribe button. And also on Rumble, press that subscribe or follow button there as well. So we really appreciate it.
I bet it's YouTube doing it.
Yeah, YouTube loves to unsubscribe people. So they're like, YouTube's over in Rumble now unsubscribing people. Those bastards. All right, we'll see you tomorrow, everyone.